Hi, I'm Tessa, a veteran educator working in the field of special education.
And I'm Kim, mom of two autistic boys and a late diagnosed autistic person myself.
And welcome to Totally Over the Spectrum, where we dive into embracing autism through understanding and support.
Hi, and welcome to episode 40, where we are talking about job readiness as an autistic person.
I can't believe 40 episodes.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Okay, job readiness as an autistic person. Every autistic person is different. So we're going to need different supports, different skills, and we have different interests.
I think getting ready for a job in general is very stressful, but you add the sensory needs and the requirements as being an autistic person, it takes it up to another level.
Yeah, I think the timeline for job readiness is really going to be different for every single person.
I agree on that. And where they are in their social aspects on their day-to-day living, and a lot of other necessities have to be in place, which we'll get to.
Yeah, I think people have this sort of idea that some people get a job in high school, part-time job, but a lot of people don't. And they think that once you're done school, it's as simple as, well, I'm finished school, I put out a resume, and off I go. And I don't think that necessarily is the correct formula for autistic people.
That doesn't work, period, in this day and age. It does not. Even for a neurotypical person, that does not happen. You have to go into looking at volunteering first, which gains you some experience to show that you're capable of doing a certain skill set before employers are looking at you on whether you're a serious candidate to be hired. So I think it is, when we're talking about job readiness, I would like people to also consider taking the opportunity of volunteering in order to gain those social experiences, to gain that work experiences before actually applying to a job. And I think that is a wonderful avenue in getting ready and preparing for a job.
Yeah, I have that way further down my list, but it is but it is definitely a really good strategy. I had my first job at the age of 12.
Kudos to you.
I know. I went out and I got myself a paper route, which I understand is very antiquated now. It's fine. But I was motivated to have my own money. I was never given an allowance. So at 12, I wanted things. So that's what I did. I went out and I got a job and I got a paper route, and it was horrific. First of all, we're in Southern Ontario, and the weather is terrible most of the time. So delivering newspapers is heavy, and with bad weather, it is. The worst part of it, though, was actually I had to collect money from people once a month. So I had to knock on doors and ask for money to pay for the papers.
Oh my.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay. That was not what my concept of paper route was. I thought you were an employed.
Time, yeah, it was not only delivering the papers, but this is before the internet. It's not like they could. That's how you did it. So I would have to collect money and give people receipts at 12. And I had one woman scream in my face collecting money at 12 years old. I swore for my kids when they were growing up, I would never make them do something as horrible as that particular job. And now, of course, newspapers are kind of all online, so you don't need to.
Yeah.
But talk about trial by fire.
Okay, yeah, that would be a trial by fire. Case, well, with both my kids growing up, that was not the avenue in which they would have to do a paper route. Everything is prepaid, and you just go deliver the ones that were paid for.
Sure. But at that time, flyers weren't online, and people would get really angry if their flyers were not there at a certain time of day.
Oh my. Okay, yeah. That sounds like
Hunger
Games.
Although that was terrible, I think it is still can be beneficial to start developing your job skills early.
I agree with you on that point.
So I think some of the things we need to think about, and of course I have a list, is you'd start with your interests and your preferences. And now I understand that maybe you don't have really solidified interests and preferences necessarily at 12, but I think autistic people tend to.
I agree with you. You have a very, in-depth need to pursue a certain interest. And once you get onto that interest, it is hardcore and lifelong.
Sometimes. They're not always lifelong. Sometimes we cycle through them. Sometimes they are lifelong. So it just depends on the person. And I know that those people often call them special interests. So I know that it might seem to others that a special interest has no potential employment value necessarily. But quite often the interests and the skills associated with it can lead to employment if you've got some creative thinking.
They certainly would lay a foundation. Anything has the possibility of laying a foundation for something that provides you the opportunity for employment. I agree with you on that point.
The original creator of Pokemon is autistic. I'm going to mess up his name totally. Names are hard anyway. Satoshi Tajiri. He was inspired by his love of video games and bug collecting. And he put those two things together and came up with Pokemon, which obviously is hugely successful. Now,
Yes.
Of course, we're not all going to reach that level of success, but it just shows those two things, which people might not think have anything in common or be employable skills, led with some very creative thinking to something that was.
And I think that is the unique, if we're talking about skill sets for employment, as an autistic person, I've always said this, you are an out-of-box thinker, which is absolutely incredible. You find avenues to which normal neurotypical people take a lot of time to be able to come to that same conclusion, which comes naturally to you. So use that out-of-box thinking in order to find what your skill set is.
I know that it's not always going to be readily apparent what your interests and preferences are for every single person. So I found some questions to help people to figure it out.
Okay, go for it. Because that was one of my number one was self-reflection and skill identification in preparing for a workforce, right? And understanding that it's going to help you kind of channel in which direction that you want to be in. Because this is a great big world and there's a lot of opportunities out there, which automatically makes it extremely overwhelming and very daunting. So, and that's across the board, whether you're neurotypical or neurodiverse. So in identifying what your skill sets are really helps you take that first step into narrowing down what it is you want to pursue.
So the first question I have is, how do I enjoy spending my time when I'm allowed to do whatever I want and I am regulated?
Okay.
So I would spend all my day making things. If I had no boundaries on what I could do in a day and I had no responsibilities, I would spend my days making things because that is my happiest place. When I am dysregulated, I might not have the energy or the mental capacity to do anything. So you can't look at your dysregulated state as part of this sort of question. It has to be when you're regulated. So if that's your answer, I don't have the energy, that is another podcast topic that you might want to check out where we talk about meltdowns, shutdowns, and burnout in episode 13, and I'll put a link to that. Then another question you can ask yourself is, are there any jobs that incorporate how I like to spend my time? And people can be very dismissive. Well, no one's going to pay me to read all day. I enjoy reading and no one's going to pay me to read all day. Well, I can see the wheels turning as I said that.
There's publishing that requires people to read and proofread and, provide those unique out of box thinking approaches to maybe analyzing an upcoming book or script or, yeah, so reading, yeah, I can see lots of avenues for that.
Editors, book reviewers, depending on what you like to read. You could be a researcher or a legal document reviewer.
Lots, yeah.
Jobs. Sometimes people would prefer to keep their hobbies as hobbies and not have the pressure of needing to make money doing it.
And I think that's good advice, because it takes away from you when you are at your limit and you need to disconnect and your escape is going into your hobby. If it then becomes work, it's going to be a messy outcome. There is no disconnect for you.
I don't want to make the exact same thing all day, every day. So I couldn't do mass production of a thing. I have zero interest in that. It would hurt my brain to have to do the same thing every time.
And that's a great example of you utilizing what your interests are and expanding on what is preferred in it and what is not preferred, and kind of pros and cons to everything.
I need to use different materials. I need to use different tools. So you also have to think whether what you're interested in is going to be sustainable long term.
That is key. And long term doesn't mean lifelong. Long term means when you reach the platform, and to learn another skill set in which you can explore and then move on to a different type of, workforce.
Yeah, people don't stay in the same job their entire lives anymore. That's not usually how it works. You can, sometimes.
It's few and far between.
Yeah. So the next thing you need to consider, I think, are your strengths and your skills. Because maybe you love to read, but maybe you're not very fast at reading, for an example. So I had to break this down because there are two kinds of skills: hard skills and soft skills.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see where this is going
Oh,
now.
yes, I can. Yeah.
Hard skills, because I have to give definitions for everything,
Okay.
are the technical abilities that you gain from education, training, and experience. And they're usually job or industry specific, like computer programming or teaching. And you can measure someone's proficiency at it through testing and certifications. Soft skills. Those are your interpersonal, social, and communication abilities. Things like all the difficulties. Things like collaboration, adaptability, time management, leadership, teamwork, problem solving, critical thinking, and all the autistic people in the audience are cringing right now.
Yes.
Because those are where the difficulties lie.
Now, there are tools out there, personality assessment tools, that can help you identify all of these areas, your strengths and weaknesses in these areas. There are those that are free and there are ones that are paid for. If you want to kind of get an idea of where you are at, certainly investigate in through the free ones before you want to go in and invest money into actually getting a full assessment done.
I don't even know how effective those are going to be for autistic people, because I think those are really geared for neurotypical people.
It possibly is. I almost guarantee it is, but there's no harm in trying, right? If it gives you some sense of, oh, I would have never thought of this, it gives you another avenue to which you can explore. So that's the silver lining to this.
I know that soft skills are often what autistic individuals struggle with. And it's not because we aren't effective communicators necessarily. It's that neurotypical people and neurodivergent people don't communicate well together.
No. The world is designed for neurotypical people.
And adaptability can be problematic.
I'm sorry for laughing.
It's all good. Neurotypical employers seem to really value things like flexibility and embracing change. And I am not really big on those things myself. For me, change needs to be logical and meaningful, and I need advance notice.
Well, I think this is when we can circle back to skill identification, right? There are some of your, the technical aspect of what you're capable of doing is going to serve you in a very rigid job process. For example, you could be working in a plant, a manufacturing plant, where you're required to pay attention to make sure that a certain component is done exactly the same way every single time. Repetitiveness, which, where your flexibility is not going to be stretched as much. Or testing facilities where you have to be very accurate and the same process needs to be applied. So your flexibility is not going to be stretched too much in the application of that job. But it could be stretched when you have a high demand, but you can start to build those resiliency skills. So,
see, I've done the chemistry thing. I worked in a laboratory before, and it's not the job. It's the social component of the job that's the problem. It's the soft skills that are the problem. I could do the testing all day, sure, but that's not the entirety of the day. You have to interact with other people. So that's where these things tend to get shaky. And I think that when you're considering your strengths and skills, you're going to need to highlight those skills that you are really good at. Amazing attention to detail. Extremely reliable, loyal, always on time. Highly skilled and productive, if the environment allows us to perform optimally. And creative thinkers, and also workplace rule followers, if those rules make sense.
In that description, what you have created is the ideal employee. You have. Any employer reading that would go, well, of course I'd want this person.
You would think so, but yet autistic people are still underemployed and unemployed.
And it comes down, once again, to that social interaction. So for me, the number 2 point was that skill development of improved social communication was number 1, is going out there and practicing it and stretching those boundaries. And stretching and growing from that is going to be crucial into preparing for a workplace.
You're going to need experience, not just in the social skills, but just experience in the job that you're going to want to go into. And sometimes experience is one of the most difficult steps for people to get. You're trying to apply for jobs and they want 5 years experience. So there are a few things you can do to just get job experience. And within that job experience, you're going to also get your social skill experience.
Now, before you jump to, lightning years ahead over here, I just want to take a moment to get parents to realize that some of these fundamental skills need to be implemented at a young age. This social communication aspect is crucial. The foundation of this is crucial when they are young. And a lot of times people don't think about that, right? When for me, working in an elementary environment, I look at my student and I go, I need to create this fundamental skill so concrete that when they're 16, when they're 18, when they're 21, this foundation will serve them as a platform in creating and developing the additional skills that they are required to be integrated into society, hold a job, and function as an effective member of the community. So the skills that we're talking about, you need to lay those fundamental skills when they're in elementary school. Not when they're in middle school, not when they're in the high school, but in elementary school when those skill sets can be fundamental and foundation. That's my little blurb over here. So sorry.
Very good. Also true. I lost my train of thought. It's okay. It'll come right back. It just takes a minute. It's fine. I was also thinking, because now I'm completely off train of thought. I was also thinking I wanted to thank everyone who's subscribed. We've had some new subscribers lately, so I want to thank everyone who's subscribed and to encourage anyone who's listening to like and subscribe. It really helps us out. It's free, doesn't cost you anything, but it really helps out our channel. So thank you, appreciate it. And now I'm back on track.
Thank you, and 2 thumbs up to you guys.
You can get experience when you're older, high school, young adult, even at 12, doing volunteer work, which you mentioned before. So volunteer work might also be easier for people with anxiety, which is most of us, because there's less pressure if it's not working out. You can leave. But it provides you a really good opportunity to try things out slowly and pivot to something else if it's not working.
Mm-hmm.
So volunteering is a really good way to get your feet wet.
And this is one aspect of the education system that I really like, is that going out there and getting volunteer hours as part of your graduation process, I think is incredible, because it gives kids that when you start off in grade 9, and if you go and volunteer in different avenues, it gives you an idea of what you want to pursue down the line. It helps you narrow your education, a bit better, and it gives you more opportunity to investigate what your likes and dislikes are.
The other thing you get to do in high school often is a co-op, or in college or university, sometimes you get to do internships. And you can talk with your guidance counselor and see what they can do for you, what they can help you with. That's their job.
Yep. And I have had so much positive feedback in regards to internships about how when they are successful at being placed in an internship and they do really well at that, they end up leading to jobs once they are graduates. So please do look at internship programs within your school and within your community.
I understand that autistic anxiety is real and it is debilitating, and I'm not minimizing that. I'm just not going over it here because we do an in-depth discussion on that in episode 22, and I'll put a link to that. The last thing I wanted to talk about was support. So while you're going through this process, this is not something you have to go through all by yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to need supports, and there are supports out there specifically to help autistic individuals find employment.
Yeah, I have it as advocating for your needs, and that could be while you're in the workplace. And we've discussed a little bit about this in previous episodes, providing a diagnosis and when it is helpful and when it's not. But that is something that we can speak more in depth in our next episode, is in preparing for an interview.
So I have different places that provide specific supports to autistic individuals in their, lost my word altogether.
Okay, don't worry, you'll find it just like Winnie the Pooh.
In their journey of finding employment. Journey. Okay, we'll go with that. Carrie's Place. That's, we're in Ontario, Canada. So we have Carrie's Place. They provide skills training, individual support, job sampling, and that's for teens and adults, and it's free. So if you're in Ontario, Carrie's Place. If you're in British Columbia, they have the Pacific Autism Family Network. They have the JET program, which is Jobs, Education, and Training. They have adult day programs. They have support for autistic individuals in developing their soft skills and their life skills. And I believe that it's a free program, but it was difficult to find that specific information on their website. But I believe that that's a free program. We have Canada-wide program called, sorry.
Go ahead, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so called Ready, Willing, and Able. And that connects employers with job seekers and provides support to both. And it's free.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't know all these things were out there. I was really excited.
I know. It's amazing what you have available to you when you actually, but a lot of this information is not readily available to people. We go down rabbit holes, all kind of rabbit holes, labyrinths of rabbit holes in order to get all of this information and present it to people.
Yeah, I will put all of this on our website. Our website is always in the description, so anybody can look at it at any time. And I have more.
Okay.
So,
All right.
Autism Ontario, online resources for both job seekers and employers. Employment Works Canada, in-person classroom training with job sampling in real workplace settings. They also have online, so it's self-paced learning. Participants get help to create an individualized action plan to support getting and keeping work. And the program includes 24/7 access to free and timely professional mental health services. And it's a free program.
They are all free, but sometimes I have had feedback from those who've accessed these programs that sometimes it does take a little bit of time to get initiated into the programs, but once you're in, it's they've had a lot of positive experience. So if you do reach out and you haven't had success straight away, just be patient. It's in they don't get as much support, financial support and backing as other aspects of the government agencies are. So just give them time. They do get back to you.
The last one I have is the Ontario Disability Support Program, and they also help with job searching, preparation, on-the-job coaching, and it's a free service.
Yeah. So I think also when you're seeking support, I think one of the good avenues is research your potential employers, right? Do your due diligence on the type of employer that you're going to be, potentially working for. Look on LinkedIn, look at what feedback has been provided on them before you decide to pursue the avenue of, interviewing with that process.
Yeah, I know you have to take the reviews with a grain of salt, because people who have a positive work experience are not as likely to go online and post about it as people who've had a negative experience with their employer. So if you're going to Glassdoor and those kinds of things and finding out what it's like to work at a company, sure, if there are dozens and dozens of reviews that are saying the same thing, then it's probably safe to say maybe that's not a great employer. But if you have a few disgruntled people, you're probably not going to get the positive feedback from the 80 employees who are really happy there.
Yeah,
so
I agree on that point, but the whole point is do your due diligence on it, and do your research on it before, kind of putting all your eggs in one basket.
I think it's hard too, because sometimes you just need to be employed. So beggars can't always be choosers.
I agree with you on that, but I'm thinking, why go through an even more stressful process when a little bit of due diligence is going to eliminate,
Depends how desperate you are in that moment to just have a job.
I see your point, but I'm trying to reduce the amount of stress that relates to seeking and preparing for a job.
Also have to pay the bills. We're not fighting. We're just having a difference.
We always play devil's advocates over here, right? It's the way we like to kind of cover all of the avenues, and an aspect of, did we include this? Did we include that? I think we always do this. We always have fun. We always learn. We always grow, and we take something away from it that we never, we came into the situation about it.
I'm going to circle back.
Circle away.
Don't be afraid to reach out to any of these places, even if there's a wait time, because anything that you can find to help support you along the way is going to be beneficial. There's this whole idea out there that an autistic person is not autistic enough to warrant these kinds of support. Stupid. If you are autistic, you require support. The difference between level 1 and level 3 is really the amount of support that you might need.
Mm-hmm.
So level 1 is not no support. It's lower support. And it's going to depend on the person.
And that's when those self-advocacy tools need to be engaged.
It's sometimes really hard to advocate for yourself. You're already burnt out. You need someone else to step in and give you a hand. And that is what these programs are for. You might not know even how you're supposed to advocate for yourself. So if someone else tells you, well, these are some things, you might say, okay, yeah, now I can ask for that because I've I've sort of been given permission to ask for that, and I didn't know that I even needed it. So having outside support can sometimes help facilitate self-advocacy. If you're struggling, you need support. It's as simple as that.
And just because you're neurodiverse doesn't mean that you are any less worthy of getting that support. It happens to anybody and everybody. We all don't arrive in this position knowing all of the answers. Otherwise, we wouldn't be in that position.
Some of the places that I've mentioned also say on their websites that they accept individuals with a self-diagnosis. Because sometimes people don't get the diagnosis. They can't. They're having difficulty finding the resources to get it.
And the financial means to get that diagnosis, they're not cheap. And we've discussed this in some of our previous episodes.
Yeah, and it can be a long process. And you still need to work in the meantime. So some of these places will absolutely accept you with a self-diagnosis.
Which is great. I love to hear that. What else have you got on your hit list?
That's enough.
That's it? Okay. I'm going to circle back to parents. I'm really kind of pleading with you. The foundational skills are very, very important to creating an environment and a situation for young adults to really flourish and grow. So please look at some of these communication skills and regulation skills when they're young, and they're far more teachable at that age than they are at 6'2". Now that we're looking at getting ready to go into the workplace, the next big aspect of job hunting is an interview, and that is daunting for anybody out there. So I think that would be a great subject for our next podcast, is to talk about how to prepare for an interview.
Sounds good.
All right. Until then, have a great day, and don't forget to like and subscribe.
We'll see you then. Thanks for tuning in. If you know someone who might find this episode helpful, feel free to share. Also, check out our website and socials linked in the description.